I really was thinking of wanting to ask Taylor a little bit more about how the data strategy and even the data mandate and problems that you try to solve as a data organization changed as you saw GitLab and then Meltano grow. Since data has been at Petal, the company that I'm at, the problems that we solve change so quickly as the business and the team grows. So it's really interesting to see how that evolves. I'd love to hear about how that changed.
Yeah. So let's separate the Meltano distinction from GitLab because at least for a large part of my career at GitLab, Meltano was a project and they were solving problems and really building the tools, but that was very different from like the data needs of the organization. And we tried to make the two meet. Specifically for GitLab, and this is kind of one of my concerns about having data teams under the finance organization is based on my direct experience with that. We were very, at the early days, initially focused on the finance org to the detriment, I think, of the rest of the organization. We were getting data from Zora and NetSuite and some other, I can't even, some like internal systems, a lot focused on ARR and customer count and churn and retention and all those fun numbers, which are extremely important. What was missing, and if I could go back in time, what I would pay more attention to was the product analytics side. Early days, there were efforts in the GitLab product to make what was called a usage ping, which is actually still in use today. So a lot of GitLab customers and open source users self-deploy, and then there are periodic calls back home if they have opted in that give you basically rough counts of how many issues do you have, how many users do you have, things like that. And that was kind of the early days of their telemetry, but it's extremely rough and not great. One of the big things that we did was implement Snowplow into the GitLab product, both for GitLab.com and also if users wanted it on their self-hosted offerings, and really starting to take a deeper look into product analytics. But honestly, that was the most undermet need for the entire time I was there, because just reporting into the finance organization, that's what we're going to be focused on. And we weren't able to fully meet the needs of product, but also we're trying to make sales and customer success and really everybody happy. And so I always say we were punching above our weight. We moved on to Snowflake. We were using DBT, and I pushed DBT as hard as it could go. And we were trying to use these DevOps best practices in the data org. And I think that really helped us move faster. But yeah, looking back now, I would have asked for a few more headcount and been a bit more strategic in our thinking there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then did the data org expand outside of finance eventually to encompass the entire organization?
So it's an interesting story because data under finance is kind of bucketed under G&A, and they like to keep costs down as much as possible. And so what we actually saw happening is other teams in the organization essentially hiring their own data analysts or spinning up their own data functions, but still relying on us as the central data platform team. So part of that, and this gets into some of the politics of it as well, is I was just a manager and I had a couple of ICs reporting to me. What was missing, and as the company grew, was kind of that director level or even VP level of leadership. We had the CFO in our court, and he understood the value of a data team, but he's the CFO, and he's kind of focused on that. And eventually, we got to the point where we hired a director of data, and then we have like a VP of IT, and they are able to move these initiatives forward. But lacking that leadership at that level, you find people hiring their own marketing analyst, or you have a couple of sales analysts. And the challenge there, happy to talk more about this too, is okay, hey, I need access to this data. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're using DBT. We use Snowflake. This is our process. And you start to butt heads a little bit with people as you kind of try to onboard them to that.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that, because I think the one thing that has been really beneficial in terms of what we've done is we do have that more senior leadership representation for data, and that has allowed us to, over time, evolve the definition of what the data infrastructure team does and focuses on, along with the understanding of the entire company and stakeholders. So we were able to shift the focus of the data engineering team, as it was called in the past, to more of a data infrastructure team, and then get more organization buy-in on, yes, we need an analytics team to really begin to service all of the data requirements across the different functions that we supported.
And it definitely changes, and it depends on the context and the size of the organization. I think most organizations as they grow are going to start with one person, and you need that person to have not just some technical experience, but also the clout and the ability to have those conversations with stakeholders and to say, hey, look, you're excited about this. Let's think about this in a larger strategy of, okay, you're deploying HubSpot. Let's think about, are we going to, here's some of the questions I know we're going to want to answer down the road. Are we putting ourselves up in a place where we can have success at that when it becomes important? And the situation I've found us in is coming in at like 200 people, and the machine is just churning and going at this point, and you're trying to wrap your arms around it, and you're doing the best you can. We were always fairly far behind of where it would have been, certainly where the ideal state would be. But even in like a super healthy state, I think we were behind that.